if there's no characters and no plot, then what we got? Then what we doing here? And I don't even want to say I read this because I definitely DNF'd it. If you read this book, just know whatever you're thinking should happen or whatever you think could happen or might happen, it happens. It's very predictable. But hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am CHIOMA or Chi, and today I'm going to be doing my March and my April or wrap up because your girl is backed up on wrap ups. So I think I'm just gonna call this like a quarterly, semi-quarterly wrap up. Okay, so the first book I read for Blackathon and in February was Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. Dr. Nnedi Okorafor, who's one of my favorite authors of all time. She's a Nigerian American author, so of course I identify with her very much. And this book is called Remote Control. I read this for the prompt for Blackathon that deals with a main character who transverses the spiritual realm. So this is about a girl named Sonkofa and who has a visit from death, basically, and then she becomes death's adopted daughter, which is kind of a very vague kind of description of a main character, but she kind of has the ability to kill just like at whim, and she doesn't know how to control this power, but then she becomes known for the same power that she doesn't know how to control, because people think she kind of wields it in a way to weaponize it, but it's actually something that she does not know how to control, and she kind of learns along her journey how to control it and what this power actually means for her. This book is very short. It's a novella, and it was so good. I gave this book 4 stars, and it was just amazingly atmospheric. I think that's something that Nnedi Okorafor excels at, is making atmospheric reads, because a book about a girl who can just like kill at whim and who just like has like the touch of death, all these things, like it's going to be out of this world anyways. Like, it's a sci-fi book starring a black woman. That's literally my jam. That's all I like to read, so I was gonna love this book regardless. But the atmosphere, the way I was back home, I absolutely enjoy this, and it actually talks about some very interesting topics I feel like that are kind of like pulled from the headlines, not pulled from the headlines in a way that like Law and Order does, but in a way that like some of these things around kind of like robot policing is happening in sub-Saharan Africa. It actually pulls from some of those kind of like narratives that are happening currently, so it's just a very atmospheric. It goes around like Sonkofa's life and kind of how she has to just be a nomad, just journey and try to find a way to kind of get rid of this power and also find the origins of the power. So it's kind of her journey along trying to find what gave her this power and also trying to combat what gave her this power and find a new sense of self after she kind of becomes like a living, breathing death machine. So this book was amazing. It was so atmospheric. Sonkofa was just such a great character, and I felt like the hand that she was dealt was very difficult. Of course, because like it starts off really with a bang. This book starts off with a bang, and you see kind of the extent of the power that Sonkofa can yield, and then the way that she transverses her life after realizing what she has done, what she can do, and what life means for her, knowing that where she lives in and knowing the power that she wields, it's just so beautifully written and so realistically done, because I could see myself in Sonkofa's position and just navigating life the exact same way. So this book was amazing. It was so good. I hope there's a sequel. Because this is already such a short book, but I enjoyed it so much, and Dr. Nnedi Okorafor can do no wrong in my eyes. Y'all know this, and I absolutely adored Remote Control. 4 stars all around. If I was a more organized type of bitch, I would have done this, or I would do this in the order in which I read it, but I'm not sure if I can do that, so we just gonna move on. The next book that I read was also for Blackathon. The prompt for this one was a black main character encounters an alien species, so that was the prompt, and for that I read The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow. This is Alicia Dow's debut novel. Alicia Dow is a black author. This is a YA sci-fi book starring a black female character, so you know I was gonna love it. That is my jam, as I said. So the main character is a girl who is kind of living in a post-apocalyptic state of Earth, but not really post-apocalyptic. It's pretty much the state of Earth after the Earth has been taken over by an alien species. So the alien species has taken over this Earth, and she lives in a kind of high-rise dormitory style building with the last remaining survivors, or last remaining humans who aren't imprisoned or killed by these aliens in New York City. So in this world, all forms of human enjoyment have been outlawed. So no books, no movies, no music, no nothing. But against the rules of this kind of like post-apocalyptic world, Janelle is able to keep a library. So she loves books. We love main characters that love books. And she has a library of her own where she kind of runs this illegal library loaning system to the other patrons in this kind of dormitory style building so they can have a little joy in their life. So one of the aliens named M01is, I'm gonna call him Morris because M01is is a mouthful. He actually finds the library and he just is very curious. He's very curious about this library because he loves music, so he loves form of kind of like human enjoyment that he's aware of before his people took over. Morris is an alien. I don't know if I pointed that out, but he's an alien. He finds this, and Janelle knows that if any of the aliens find this, she'll be executed on sight. Like it's a non-negotiable. Books like carry, I don't know, the secrets to overthrowing aliens apparently, so they can't have no books. And M01 just finds this and finds out that it's Janelle's. So once Janelle finds out that one of the aliens has found out about her library, she obviously starts to panic, rightfully so. She knows she's going to be executed, but they actually kind of make a truce and she starts to find out a little bit more about Morris. Morris starts to find out a little bit more about her, and they kind of go on this journey together to try to kind of stop the grand scheme or the grand end goal of the aliens when it comes to the humans. I absolutely adore this book. Sci-fi, of course, my favorite genre, and then of course the Black main character, my favorite genre. Everything was great about this. So the book is very much a sci-fi book, so obviously the world building and everything is very sci-fi. A lot of the problems, the plot points are very sci-fi, but I think about halfway towards the book it kind of does start to focus more on the relationship between Morris and Janelle very, very strongly. So it kind of shifts from being a sci-fi with a side of romance to more of a romance with a side of sci-fi as they go on this journey, which I actually love. If you're new here, I love that. I wasn't mad about it, but if you're not really looking for that type of story, just be forewarned. But it was just an amazingly fun debut. It was very, I would say it was kind of a light read. There's not too much intricacies that happen within the plot, but it is kind of a light read, and the ending I think was very, very well wrapped up. So it's very interesting how there is going to be a sequel, because I'm pretty sure this is the first in a series from Alicia Dow, so I'm pretty sure there is going to be a sequel. But the way the ending wrapped up was very interesting. A little bizarre, to be honest, but very interesting, and I definitely saw it coming, so it wasn't like a shocker. But basically, for the enjoyment value of this book, for it being by a Black female author, for being a sci-fi with a side of romance, I absolutely adored The Sound of Stars. I love the way the books and the music played a very strong role throughout the book, and it was just such a fun read. It was such a fun read, and this cover was beautiful, and it definitely lived up to this gorgeous cover. So 4 stars for The Sound of Stars for Alicia Dow as well. The third book I read in February, this was actually not a part of Blackathon, but I did only read Black authors in February, I believe. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure I only read Black authors, and the third book I read was Truth or Dare by Danielle Allen. This book was recommended to me by Jaleesa from Bounded and Bookmarked. She was just like, if you want to get back into contemporary chi girl, read this book, and I was like, bet. So I did read this book, and it was very, very interesting. First of all, the feels. This is one of those really, really short books that you can get on Kindle Unlimited that's just like straight dialogue. Like, we're not doing no frou-frou lame setting descriptions. We're not like giving you like, we're not here for atmosphere. We're here for characters and dialogue, and I actually really, really love that. So basically this is about a group of college friends that get together for 2 of their friends within the group, their wedding. So they're getting together and they're on like, I think they're in Miami, and they're just all there. They all regroup. They all kind of like a friendship group reunion for this person or for this pair's wedding. And they have this thing where in college they used to play Truth or Dare. Like, you know, if you want to get like college atmospheric vibes, this is the book. I was really back in freshman year, back in sophomore year, back in the dorms with this book. So they play a game of Truth or Dare, and they just kind of like reminisce. They go back in time and they kind of just like see, or just kind of like tell of the journey they had from their college days to right now. And I think they're in their kind of like early 30s. So it's kind of like that journey that we kind of get to see through them playing this game of Truth or Dare. And then 2 of the characters whose names completely escape me because I read this so long ago, but 2 of the characters actually who were kind of just like friends from their freshman year, so they never together, never dated before, because there's like all kinds of couples like intermingled in this friend group as you know, that's college, that's how it always goes. So 2 of the friends who actually never dated before find themselves, you know, feeling a little something for each other, you know, there's a little attraction, there's a little something, and their relationship is just so adorable. It's just so cute. It's just really cute. It's just because it's like friends to lovers type of romance, so like you could really tell like they were like cool friends, and I absolutely love that, because then like the chemistry is just already there. You don't have to like fake it. You don't have to spend too much time trying to build it. It was just already there. And yeah, it was just a really, really fun light read. Like, you know, know, there's not too much plot going on. Like, you kind of know how it's gonna end, you kind of know how it's gonna begin, but it was still such a fun read. Extreme smut level, so if you're into that, this is top tier. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10 for the smut, because Daniel Allen did not come to play. So if you want just like a light kind of reminiscent college romance with kind of like a marriage setting and like a lot of characters, a lot of fun characters, and I want to emphasize a lot of smut, then Truth or Dare by Daniel Allen was a great one that I read in February. Okay, the next book I read in February was Pawn, Night of the Dark Fae, book 1 by Angela Ford, and I don't even want to say I read this because I definitely DNF'd it, and I'm definitely not going to read it again. It's not even on pause. It's a solid DNF. Like, when I say this book bored the crap out of me, this book was so boring. Nothing happened. I think I DNF'd it at around, around 45%. So I read a chunk of this book. Boring. Nothing happened. And I'm just like, from what I can tell, it's around this girl who is part of a warrior clan, and she's captured by this kind of vampire monster group, elves. I think elves, they're evil elves, maybe. So she's captured by like evil elves, and then she's in prison. So the evil elves want to take over the world, so they send her on this journey to go and find the last piece that they need to take over the world, and after that, then she'll earn her freedom. But the journey's kind of like, it's one of those journeys that's like, it's made to fail. Like, if you die, then they're happy, and if you get the object that they're looking for, then they're also happy. But she's kind of set up to fail. So she's on this journey, and she's with this companion. Something I actually really liked is like her companion wasn't like, I feel like books tend to like, the max you can be is 30, and once you hit 30, like, they're just like, you can't be a main character anymore. But one of the side characters was actually kind of like a older woman who was kind of like a sorceress who was supposed to help her in this journey. I was just like, that was very interesting. I found like that dynamic very interesting, especially because it never really happened. It's really just like a bunch of 17-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 28-year-olds, and that's the max. We ain't going older than that. We don't want to see it. And I was just like, but why? Like, people age, it's a thing. Anyways, yeah, so that's the journey. And then there's kind of just this air of like a lot of kind of like anecdotes about this girl's past. Like, she used to be part of this warrior clan, and she used to just like fight and be really kind of like ruthless. She only fought for like money and power. That's all she cared about. And now she needs to fight for and like kind of understand the greater good. And then she's fighting for these elves. It was, I did not know what was happening. I knew what was happening, but it was boring as heck. The characters were boring as heck. There was too much time jumps between too many pieces of like characters, a group of characters that we were supposed to care about, but we didn't know how they all connected and how, like, why we were supposed to care about them. And it just didn't make sense. I felt like this book tried to give the villain a redemption arc before we even got to know the villain as a villain. So if you're gonna make someone the antagonist, so like the villain king or the elf king, I think it was an elf. So the elf king is like super evil, like just out here killing, just doing evil things. And then, so we get that introduction to him by some anecdotes from the main character, as well as some of the actions of the villain when they are introduced. But then like in the next chapter, the author's already trying to redeem this villain. Like, just already trying to redeem this villain, and I'm just like, we haven't even met them as a villain, so now you're already trying to redeem them. It made absolutely no sense. I did not like where that was going. So that happened, and then the journey was just very, very slow. So there was really nothing happening. There was really no real sense of like moving of plot points. And okay, if you're not moving to plot points, because I'm a character-driven reader, I can read with just character-driven books if there's no plot easily. Like, that's so fun for me. But like, if there's no characters and no plot, then what we got? What we doing here? And I don't know, I didn't know what I was doing here, so I stopped reading the book because it was boring as heck. But I really, really wanted to. Like, I pushed past that book because I wanted to DNF it at 25, but I pushed another 20%, and I was like, why? This is doing absolutely nothing for me. It was boring as heck, and I don't think I'll ever pick it up again. I know I will not ever pick it up again because there's no point. Next book I read in February, again by a Black author. I tried my hand at reading a Beverly Jenkins book. I actually thought this was the first Beverly Jenkins book that I ever read, but I actually looked at like my blog from when I was 17, and I actually already read a Beverly Jenkins book, but this one is Captured. I think this one's part of a series with brothers, and I haven't read any of the other books in the series, but this one's very interesting because I was under the impression, because this is a historical romance, and I do not read historical romances. I don't like anything historical, mainly because I do not like the way Black people are portrayed in historical texts that aren't written by Black authors, Black or African authors. I don't like the way Black people are portrayed, so I don't read them. I just stay away. But this is by Beverly Jenkins, who is a Black female author, so I decided to give it a try. It's basically about a pirate who's pirateering, who's doing his pirate thing, and then he happens upon this ship and he's about to pirate it, like you know, loot it, steal it. I don't know what pirates do, but he's about to pirate it, and then he sees one of the women on the ship is this black woman, and she is a slave, but she's a slave that has been taught to read and is in like kind of like more fancy garments and everything like that, but she's still a slave nonetheless. And he sees her, he takes her captive as a way to kind of like ransom her for these people, and also just to like kind of steal her away from like these evil people, because like whether or not they're treating her right, whether or not they're teaching her how to read, they're clothing her nicely, she still sleeps on the floor and she's still a slave. So he wants to take her away because did I mention Dominique Lovec? He's a black pirate, yeah. So he takes her away, and that's how their story ensues. And there's a lot of other characters that are kind of trying to put angst on their relationship. So I think Beverly Jenkins writes very low angst like books. Her books don't have a lot of angst, but it's really about what's going on around the main characters that makes the angst. And I think I kind of enjoyed that. I do think it was a bit jarring because again, I don't read historical books, so I kind of expected this book to live in an alternate world in which colonialization of slavery wasn't a thing, to be honest, to my ignorance. But it wasn't that, and I do find like even I had to kind of stop some places and kind of like, because it is historically accurate in some places, so I had to stop some places and kind of like take a deep breath, because like this is kind of like a telling of kind of like some of the trials and tribulations that black people who were in the Americas during slavery had to go through. So that was something that was woven into the story just to let people know. But I did really enjoy this. It was a very different type of romance book, because again, low angst, and I don't read low angst. I'm reading fantasy and sci-fi. It's not low angst, like people dying, worlds are blowing up, like it's not low angst. This was very low angst, but I did enjoy it. It was kind of a slower read because it's definitely different for me, but it was enjoyable. It was interesting. I'm glad my first peruse into historical romance was by a black female author, and I don't know, I'll probably pick up another Beverly Jenkins book because I still don't like the genre, but I like Beverly Jenkins. Does that make sense? Anyways, I give this one 3 stars. I give this 3 stars. It's 3 stars. And I don't think I said, but I also gave The Sound of Stars 4 stars, and I didn't rate Pawn because I didn't finish it, but that's all the books I read in February. Moving on to March, the first book I read was Heart of the Fae by Emma Hahn, and this book is, I think the only reason I read this book is because like Radiance by Grace Hahn, no, not Grace Hahn, by Grace Draven is one of my favorite books of 2020. I absolutely adore that book. So I've been looking on all the Goodreads lists that say if you like Radiance by Grace Draven, what other books should you read? And this was on that list. So basically this book is about a girl who is kind of like a pseudo matriarch. So she's one of the oldest sisters of our big family of sisters. It's only her and her father. She's actually adopted by this family, and her mother was killed when she was really young because she was accused of being a witch, or accused of fornicating, I don't think that's the word either, conspiring, accused of being in really close contact, close proximity with the Fae, and that is kind of like a no-go. So this world, they kind of have turned their backs on the Fae. The Fae used to be kind of work in like harmony with them, but they've kind of turned their backs on the Fae, except for this girl who is kind of the oldest sister of this family, and her family owns a brothel, I think that's what it's called. But what's going on in this village is that there's actually a plague that her dad has, that a bunch of kind of people in this village has, and it's sweeping the village, and it's just making everyone's dying, and it's a really grossly described plague, because it's like there's literal leeches under people's skin and you can see them move, and it made my skin crawl. But that's not a plot point of this book. So basically she takes it upon herself to try to find the cure for this, because her dad is deteriorating by the second. So what she does is she kind of enters the forest, and she does kind of like some of the same spiritual things that her mom taught her to do whenever she wanted to get in contact with the Fae, even though getting in contact with the Fae is something that is like not believed in this village. They don't even believe the Fae exist. They don't believe they're good people, all kinds of that. So she ends up getting into contract with the Fae, and what the Fae asks her to do is go to this island and retrieve this person, this being, and bring them back, and then I'll give you the cure for this village ailment. She's like, bet. So she goes, and she finds out that the person that they want to bring back is just this like hideous monster, Fae, kind of swimming. He looks like a fish to me. If you ever watch The Shape of Water, that's what he looks like on the cover. Like, he looks like a fish. Yeah, so she goes and she's asked to bring back this person who is just kind of like monstrous. Did I mention that this is the Beauty and the Beast retelling? Because it is. Yeah, so he's obviously the Beast, and yeah, so basically she is tasked with bringing him back in order to get the cure for the plague. And basically when he tells her this, he's just like, I don't care about your human plague. That's not my portion. That has nothing to do with me. She just thinks like he's a horrible person. Like, how dare you not care about the humans? Blah blah blah. This is not what I was taught. The Fae. Blah blah blah. She gets real dramatic, but then they get to know each other, father, she gets to know kind of his side and like who actually he is in the Fae world, because she thinks he's just like a monster who kind of rules over this island in which humans and Fae are not allowed to travel back and forth from. She's actually the first human to get there in like millenniums or something. So she kind of learns like why he's trapped on the island and like who he actually is to the Fae and all of those mechanics and things like that, and kind of like their journey from there. So I think I gave this book, so I definitely give this book 4 stars, and 4 stars is kind of my default. Like I give everything 4 stars. If it's not like amazing, if I didn't adore it, then it's not gonna be a 5 star. But also 3 stars are kind of what I give like real base tier books, just base, like you hit the basics. So I gave this one a 4 stars, and now looking back, I feel like I want to give it a 3 star because it wasn't really that interesting. Like not much happened. I found the backstory of the main character, like his backstory and all of his like tumultuations, whatever, all of his like backstory, his family drama, I found that more interesting. And I found the main girl character kind of being a little naggy, kind of boring, and just kind of like just not fully developed and kind of one track minded. But it makes sense because like, you know, her village is dying, but then it starts off like her character wasn't very consistent, because it starts off like she's super focused on bringing this person back so that she can get the cure because time is of the essence, and then all through the middle of the book she just forgets about time and she just be living life. And I'm just like, I thought we were on a mission. I thought like this was important. I thought we had to go, but apparently we did not have to go. So she's just like really chilling there. And then at the end, she's just like, oh, now time is of the essence again. And like, it's just really hitting the fan for old boy. But she's like, now my problems are really at the forefront. So she kind of annoyed me, and like he also kind of annoyed me. But I did like the realisticness of how this book ended, because I feel like too often, like especially when the genre is fantasy romance, too often the kind of like culmination of the main characters is just so fast or quickly done that you don't really get to like feel like how this connection was built and how they have like such strong connection that they're willing to make these kind of like life-altering decisions for one another. But that was like something that was done really well in this book, so that is something I did enjoy. So I think if you did like Radiance by Grace Draven, and you do like kind of like the Fae and the human interactions and kind of like that fantasy romance type books, I would recommend this book. There is a sequel, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna read it because I just don't really care. I don't really care. Yeah, I may read it. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so I may read it, but who knows. But I give this book 4 stars, 3.5 stars. Now the next book I read is not new to anyone. It is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book, I read it in March. I finally read it. I've had it for so long. People have been, this is like the most talked about book in certain niches of the book diverse in the bookternet. I know it's like TikTok's most popular book, and it was, you know, it was good. It was, I gave this book 3 stars. I give this book 3 stars because like for being such a big thick book, there was not much that happened. I found that like the best part of this book was the main character. Let me give a description, even though I know everyone already knows about this book. So it's about a girl. Her name is Poppy. She is raised to be a maiden, which is kind of like this god-ordained figure who is eventually going to like be a new leader into like some type of new world order for these people, for this elite. So it's kind of like she's part of the bourgeoisie, but there's also like these monsters who her side of the people are fighting against. And then she starts to find out that everything that she's been told about her world, about the Ascended, who are these kind of like magical beings that are God chosen because they've done like the right things and all that, who get an immortal life. She starts to find out some secrets about them and some secrets about herself, some secrets about her role in this world. And then while she's doing that, she is met with this bodyguard who is kind of telling her to kind of keep questioning, but also she finds out some things about that bodyguard. That's what this book is about. I'm sure there's so many better descriptions about the synopsis of this book, but this book I gave 3 stars because it was good. It was a good book, but was it as life-changing as the bookternet made it seem? Heck no. No, it was not. It was a good book, but it was like, I feel like if we cut out the middle 400 pages, what is it, a 600 page book, and put the beginning 200, wow, I cannot do math, the beginning 100 and the ending 100 together, that would have been a 4-star read. Like that, the beginning and the end, amazing. The middle 400, I'm just like, nothing is happening, my dude, nothing is happening. And Poppy and the main characters, Poppy and Hawk and Tawny and everybody was just kind of, they didn't know who they wanted to be. I just feel like nothing happened, and it was okay. It was okay. I really enjoyed the background, learning about the background of Poppy's world and Poppy's people, and learning about that background was the most interesting part, and as well as the last like 50 pages was very, very interesting. I really liked those two words, because honestly, as predictable as this book was, I did not see the ending coming. I'm ashamed to say I did not see that coming. As predictable as this, like, if you read this book, just know whatever you're thinking should happen or whatever you think could happen or might happen, it happens. It's very predictable, but I still didn't predict it. So that's on me, whatever. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it enough to really want the second book, because the last, like I said, the last 100 pages, like really, it really hit the fan, and I was really, really invested after that. So I gave this book 3 stars. And then right after that, I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. I read it on ebook, and this is also by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It's the second book in the Blood and Ash series, and I really like this one a lot better. It's crazy because a lot of people like the first book and did not like the second book. The second book was so much better. Like, we had angst, we had battle, we had character development, we had angst, we had a lot of angst, we just had more, we had kind of reveals, we had like mysteries. The second book was so much better. The second book really went ham, in my opinion. So if you didn't like the first book, I feel like you'll like the second book a lot better. If you didn't like the first book for like some of the like slowness and the kind of like mundaneness and kind of like where are we going with this type of like aspects of the book, I think you'll like Kingdom of Flesh and Fire a lot better. If you did really like the first book, I don't know how well you'll like this book, because I don't know. But this one really goes more into kind of Poppy and Hawk as characters, and kind of like their backgrounds and what makes them the way they are, and kind of like how they're navigating, really coming into their own and really trying to kind of make decisions for their own lives that don't wrap around who they were raised to be. And I really, really liked how they did that, and I really enjoyed that. So Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I think I gave 4 stars. I don't know, ask me in a month, I might change my mind. The next 3 books I read were 3 mangas by Yoko Nogiri, and this is Love in Focus. This is by the same author of the book The Wolf Boy Is Mine, which I absolutely love. I love that manga, some of my favorite. So Love in Focus, this one, and so this is basically about a girl who has to move into a dormitory, and in this dormitory, so she's a photographer, so she was raised as a photographer. Her grandpa raised her to be a photographer, and she loves taking pictures, and she just takes pictures like willy-nilly, like all the time. So she ends up taking this picture of this guy who hates getting his picture taken, of course, and he's just like, what the heck, like, what we doing here, like, this is illegal. And she's just like, my bad, like, you just look really cool. He's just like, well, don't take pictures of me. And while he's saying that, she's taking another picture of him like, oh, I'm sorry, like, you just look really cool in that moment. So it's really, really funny. I really enjoy the main character. So it's a shoujo manga, so you know how it's gonna go. And she becomes obsessed with wanting to take his picture, and he finally says, okay, you can take my picture as long as my face isn't in it. And they kind of just learn about the characters, and it's just so fun. It's such a nice hug of a series. You know, I love shoujo manga around here. It's great, a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed the series. I think I gave it all 4 stars. So yeah, you see, I love 4 stars. 4 stars are my favorite rating. The next book I read was another book by Angela Ford. I actually didn't end up DNFing this book like I did Pawn, because this book was so great. I loved it so much. I gave this one, oh, I gave it 3 stars. What am I doing? My rating system is so effed up. Anyways, I really, really enjoyed this book. So I don't know why I gave it 3 stars. Oh, I know why I gave it 3 stars. So basically, this book is around a girl. Her father dies, and then she finds out that she actually is nothing. So she's kind of a noble woman in this world, but she finds out after her father died that she has absolutely nothing. So they were swimming in debt, but her father did not let her know at all. So she was basically going to these balls, buying this jewelry, buying these gowns, and she didn't even know her father was doing this while being in debt. So when he dies, she finds out that she owns nothing. So the debtors come and collect, and she has no house. She's on the street. And then a distant relative comes and says, come live with me. You can come and sing and dance for our orchestra. And she does just that. She comes and lives with this count, and she becomes a dancer, but she doesn't really like dancing. What she really wants to do is sing. So she wants to sing, and every night there is kind of like this voice that comes from this tower in the distance. Everyone knows that the tower is haunted. There's so much stories about like what goes on in the tower, but they know the tower is haunted, that it's not a good place, it's not a good, there's evil spirits, all kinds of things. But she hears this hauntingly beautiful music coming from the tower, and because of that, and because she wants to sing and she wants to be the star of this kind of production that her uncle or her distant cousin relative is putting on, she ventures into the dark tower to find out who is singing and if they can teach her. And then she finds out all the secrets about her uncle, about like the orchestra that he runs, about kind of like what the tower actually is, all of these things unfold and all this mystery unfold, and it's actually really interesting while this fantasy romance is happening. I really like this book until the end. The end kind of made no sense. Like, it's really fun. You see kind of like the relationship between the music teacher or the music veteran and this dancer. You see how that develops. You see how she has to do that in tandem with the strike that she's going on at her new home, and you kind of see all of that unfold and see kind of like how the mysteries are kind of like piecing together with each other. But the ending, I just feel like it didn't really make too much sense to me. And like, of course it's a fantasy, so it doesn't have to make a lot of sense, but it didn't make sense. And I understand the name of the book is Music of the Night, so I know how the music needed to come to play, but I reiterate, it made no sense to me. So I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. But yeah, I didn't get it. But I still really enjoyed it. I still really enjoyed it, and I think it was a really fun book. This book definitely redeemed Angela Ford in my mind. I'm so glad, because after Pawn I was so disappointed. So I'm really glad that she redeemed herself in my mind with this book, because I really enjoyed it. So thank you for watching the first part of this wrap up. I'm gonna have a second part up probably this week, probably right after sometime this book, but I just didn't want this video to be so long. Definitely tell me if you've read any of these books, what you liked about them. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video where I'm wearing the exact same outfit. Bye.